Hi, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Showing Up, the podcast that aims to inspire you to embrace your weird, to do that thing, even if you suck at it. You know, the one that you always wonder about, that you always talk yourself out of, that one. And to fully show up, even in the midst of all the circumstances, even in the midst of not feeling good enough, for this one wild and precious life that each of us have our own path on. I'm your host. Most people know me as a professional skier, Lynsey Dyer. This is my podcast. Here, I hope to share a good conversation between friends that all of us can benefit from. This one in particular is with the legendary Jonny Moseley.
I thought I was like this disciplined Olympic athlete, but you realize when you stop having coaches and trainers and head coaches and people sort of organizing your schedule and career and managers, that's like you're laid bare.
Recorded in New York City, where we both were representing the ski industry, Jonny shares with me an amazing story. You would mostly know him as a former professional freestyle skier whose many accomplishments include winning a gold medal at the 1998 Winter Olympics with a very controversial trick that changed the sport forever. Since retiring from the sport, Jonny has gone on to be a successful TV host for shows like The Challenge and American Ninja Warrior. And in this conversation, he talks about his early career and the transition from being a member of the U.S. ski team and Olympian to the more challenging professional landscape of social media, brand sponsorship, and all that's currently the norm. He talks also about his relationship with his beautiful wife. I love this part, who he met in high school, and how she's become and always been an integral part of his career ever since they started dating in the early 2000s. We'll also talk about his disappointing fourth finish at the 2002 Winter Olympics, which speaks to the losses we can all relate to as athletes and anyone who's set out to take a risk toward a dream. He talks about fatherhood and teaching his kids the tough lessons that he learned from skiing, like constructive self-criticism, and why he doesn't want them to become professional skiers, even though he loves and has dedicated his life to this crazy sport. Jonny's been a friend and a role model for a long time. I'm so excited to share this very special conversation between friends with you. Enjoy, friends. All right, so I got to sit down with Jonny.
Are we rolling?
Jonny Moseley, yeah, we're rolling.
Well,
Paint
are
the
you kidding
picture.
me? I can't believe it's been so long since we sat down and had a conversation. Last time was in the back of a small plane, right?
I was hurting on the back of that small plane.
Post Warren Miller show. It's always painful. That was a while ago, huh? That must have been 2000. What is it? 2010 maybe? Was it that long ago?
I don't know. I'm terrible with numbers.
Yeah, I can't remember.
But it was a good time.
Yeah.
After the Children of Winter.
Oh, you
And
remember
my
the title? That was pretty
first
good.
front flip. It was fun.
Remember we had big plans. We were gonna do a trip, go skiing.
Oh.
We still need to do that. I don't think we've ever actually skied together.
No. I didn't. I don't want you to feel bad.
Hey, I'm kind of past that.
Yeah, at the time, Jonny had foregone all athleticism, and we started calling him Fat Jonny.
That's right.
Because it was after all the pressure of the Olympics, and he had just really let himself go.
I really did. I was Fat Jonny.
And now he just came back from a run, and he's Skinny Jonny. I don't even recognize him.
That was all for
disappointed.
effect. I knew I was going to see you, and I had to so I just went and got like a little sweat and came back.
You're so athletic.
No, I know. That's funny. Somehow it feels much better to be in shape like my old self. It was a long, protracted.
How long was it?
Time that I was not. Well, I was trying to still maintain like a normal eating habit lifestyle but not work out as much as I did when I was, actually doing stuff, when I was active.
Yeah.
And, I started having kids. And so like I went back, I had this argument with my wife all the time, who she's always had a good handle on, it's always been like what she eats, and she's fit and the whole 9 yards. And I was always like, that's baloney.
Eat whatever you
work
want.
out like an animal and eat whatever you want. And I would taunt her about, the need to work out more and how you got to work it into your day, and it's got to be in the morning and then again in the afternoon and da-da-da-da-da. And then at some point I was like, damn it, she's right. Like there's just, my life is not focused around training anymore. Like I can't do that all day with kids.
Not your job to
like
train.
your life. And I've got to like spend a lot of time at a desk. And so I was like poolside when my kids were little, and a friend of Malia's was like, I don't know what she was doing. She started talking to me about, this was a while ago. She started talking to me about, carbs and like what the deal with carbs was. And she was eating some kind of like weird wafer that wasn't a cracker. And so it seems so crazy to think that I didn't know this at the time, but like the idea
with
that
all the U.S.
carbs
ski team and all the nutritionists, you didn't have.
No, I still didn't. I had no idea what I was doing in the food category, and I just never thought of carbohydrates as like sugar, But as soon as I made that connection and started looking at things, orange juice and stuff, like all these things you thought were healthy for you, and you would eat like bananas, you'd be like, well, I can't eat enough bananas, or oranges. And
pat me on the back, I had a banana.
Exactly, like all these things. And so when I finally started looking at the world with that lens, I was like, oh my God, this is, and it was immediate. Like as soon as I started just sort of regulating that, I was like, whoa, this is insane. This really works. And then that just like fueled me to be in better shape, and it all builds on each other.
Well, it's like
right?
the pendulum, right?
Yeah.
You had swung so far on one side of the pendulum and then
exactly
swung back to the other of this
like,
screw it.
This long period
Side.
when I never wanted to see the inside like of a weight room again.
Right. Just
now I look back and I'm like, damn, I was so lucky to be able to work out all the time.
totally.
I have to wake up at like 5 to work out between 6 and 7, and that's it.
You do now, or you did then?
I do now, yeah.
Because that's your only time.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, because otherwise it just gets away from you if you're at home. On the road is easy, right?
Yeah.
Like
right.
on the road's like vacation.
Right.
But when you're home with the kids and everything going on, you can't leave it to 3 o'clock.
So what is your life like these days? What's the day to day? Or do you want to pause and so you can eat your breakfast?
Yeah, that was probably a
We're
bad
sitting
idea.
here. I'll just paint the picture in this
you,
really cool
you talk, yeah.
New York hotel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the thing these days everything's dark. And I don't know if that's just for mood or to hide like the dirt or like how old these places are. But we found the quietest space we can, and we're having breakfast. And
yeah, this looks like the
Johnny just
nightclub
came in from a
portion.
run. Yeah, it's like the
Gansevoort.
the nightclub.
It's kind of got
Gansevoort.
that dirty feel.
There's skulls
There's
in the
it's
wallpaper.
like if you turn the lights out, it would be fine, but with the lights on, like the benches are broken and
yeah, there's like puke in between the seats.
totally. But it's definitely a place
There's
you were like,
a 17-year-old girl that's gonna come out for her walk of shame under the seats pretty soon. That's probably not politically correct.
Yeah. What is life like now? That's a broad question.
Day to day.
Yeah. Day to day varies for the season, right? Just like with you, during starting about this time of year, I'm kind of just bouncing from one thing to another, and I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss my flight and get to the next thing. And
are you still doing
study my notes? Yeah. So okay, I can since we have a long time, I can lay out the whole
Give it to
the
us
whole
straight.
picture.
Yeah.
Usually I'm like talking to someone at like a
I'm not
party,
NBC.
and I have 5 minutes, and so I don't want
I
to
don't
run
need
the
the
whole thing.
soundbite.
But I'll go into detail because there's a bit of it's a bit of a laundry list of things that I do.
I imagine.
I essentially am doing a lot of the same thing I've been doing since I was 18 or 19 years old, right? Working with different companies to essentially help market them and help their business, I guess, at a broad view. But it's a little more detailed than that. starting with the ski industry stuff, I have a deal with Squaw Valley and Alpine Meadows. That's why we're here in New York. We're promoting the Mountain Collective, and that's my home mountain. That's where I grew up skiing. I've been actually officially, working with them under contract for I think like 7 or 8 years now. It's amazing. It's like the best thing I do. I'm involved in all the different aspects of what they're doing.
So you're like a lifetime ambassador.
I hope to be. Yeah, I mean, it's not like, I always will be a lifetime ambassador. I will always promote Squaw. I always did. I always have. I love it there. I do have a lifetime gold pass. I do have a lifetime pass that I won with that. They gave to me when I won the Olympics.
I think that's better than the Olympics.
It's yeah.
Well, that's like a one hit.
Well, what people really like at Squaw, when they don't care about that. They don't care about that I have a run named after me. All the kids are like, you have a lifetime cookie pass at Wildflower.
Yes.
Which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Man, that's how you
have a lifetime cookie pass?
That's where Fat Johnny really came from.
That's what happened to Fat Johnny, a lifetime cookie pass. So yeah, and that's been a great, working with the ski resorts and then with Squaw has been a great experience for me because it's really sort of taught me a lot about stuff I didn't know when I was getting into this skiing thing. So just like how it all works, how the industry works, and a lot about life. And I've made great friends. So I spent a lot of time, promoting Squaw, figuring out what, helping sort of advise what we're doing next. It's a great relationship. So I do a bit of that. And then the Warren Miller film, and on a daily basis, that takes up, there's plenty of stuff going back and forth there, right? I'm doing voiceover for different initiatives, for videos, and I do that from my house. And so I'm kind of like we're always doing something. I'm probably on the phone with Squaw every day for something, on average 4 days a week, something like that, right? Talking about something we're doing, something going on. So that's just a great relationship. And then I'm up there a bunch doing, skiing with people, or like the Warren Miller deal we have, last 2 years we shot a Warren Miller segment there, and then I narrate that movie. And then, so I was, I fake it. I do my best to ski in it. And then I narrate it. And so, and then I go on the road and promote it.
You're just a ski actor.
But it's, I try to keep up. I'm out there like skiing with Errol and JT and all these guys, and it's just like, God, I don't want to kill myself, And but they're
I'm just
nice.
A dad now, guys.
Yeah.
Just wait up.
Yeah, we did a family segment this year. That was cool. And then they always give me kind of the easy lines, which is nice and smooth, deep pow, and which is good. So I do a bit of that in the winter. And I end up skiing a lot. My 2 kids are heavy into skiing and on the teams there,
How
the
old
same
are they
program,
now?
7 and 10.
Wow.
And so whenever I get a chance, I try to coach their squads and drop in with them, or I'm tuning skis or taking them to a race. My wife, unfortunately, it's like the weirdest thing, right? I'm not even really around to take them. It's my wife that shuttles them all around to ski stuff. But
Even though you're working from home, you're still on the road that much.
Yeah, in the winter I'm not. I'm on the road a lot. Yeah.
Wow.
So because I have Squaw, and then I've got the Warren Miller deal.
How
and then
long does that take, the Warren Miller thing?
It doesn't take that long. When I'm in Squaw, that's what takes the longest, is trying to lay down a segment, because you know how it is with weather.
So the
and all
hardest
that
thing
stuff.
is still skiing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good to know. Everything else is easier.
Well, it takes the most time because it's like
weather,
and then I have to, I got to be there. It's how it is. Like you said yesterday, I think, like filming a movie is like you don't actually ski. It's
right.
Just standing around a lot. So, and then I have, I've got all these, like, I'm entering into kind of an interesting. I spend a lot of my days sort of working with these different companies. Like I have a deal with Toyota Northern California, and it's like 30 dealerships, but they're really active, and they have a deal with Squaw, so we promote winter, and then now they have a deal with the Olympics. So I'm communicating with them or having meetings with them about like we're making all kinds of content, right? It's assets that go everywhere. It either goes to the web, or we're making radio stuff or TV ads. And the ad agency is awesome, and they really work closely with me, and they take my advice seriously. And that's kind of the difference between, what I was doing 15, 20 years ago versus now, is that 20 years ago, I'd have a deal with a company and they'd be like, show up here and do that, and we're going to do, and do this. Now it's like I'm involved in all the steps. And so it's cool.
So they trust you. You're not just a dumb athlete. They actually trust your expertise and your brain now.
It's great. Yeah. And that, I love that. Because that's one of the things I didn't like about just straight TV hosting. And one of the reasons I stopped, we had dinner last night with the Real World Road Rules producer that I used to work with. And
Nice.
she pointed out that I stopped after 3 years. And it's true. I stopped hosting the challenge after 3 years because I would just stand around and wait to be told what to do, which is like great. It was easy money, right? I mean, it was like the first one I did was in Jamaica. I was there for 4 weeks. I worked 4 days a week, got paid well, and I'd just stand out there and wait to be told what to say, and then I'd ref some challenges. But so I just, like, in my mind, I'm like, God, don't take this for granted. Don't take this for granted. This is like, people would kill for this job. It's like the easiest job in the world, but
you weren't challenged.
I was like, I can't do it anymore. Like, I'd rather work more.
I'm not a dumb jock.
Get me involved, or something. So I could have probably said, get me involved. But at that time I was 26 or something like that. So I just didn't even know to say that. But now the stuff I'm doing is very similar. I'm using all those skills, hosting, doing a lot of, TV work, I guess you would call it, video stuff where I'm on camera and doing things, but I'm involved in, like, the process. Like, I'm working a lot right now on a deal that I did with California's marketing arm, which is the first deal I've actually pitched and kind of, I would call it sold. I mean, I don't want to say that it's sold like it was, because in the end, the deal we made was a collaboration, right? Like, I had an idea. They had a similar idea. This is California's marketing arm, Visit California. They had a similar idea, and we put it together. But it's the first time I've been, like, an executive producer, right? On this content. Yeah.
And
I got to help pick the director and who was, the production company and all that stuff. So
when will we see it?
Yeah, it's on. It's all web related. This is, it lives on the web. It's only 4-minute pieces. It's called Jonny Moseley's Wildest Dreams. I'll show it to you. I'll show it to you right now. Let's see if we have any internet here. But they're like the first pieces I'm really like, when I watch it, I'm like, yeah, I like this.
Like that.
I mean, because
Your
how
idea
it is.
Came to
Most of the
fruition.
stuff I'm like, I cringe when I watch myself.
So cheesy.
So I'm actually really happy with these, and we're kind of firing on all cylinders, making these. They're little adventure. They're just adventure segments. This isn't like we didn't reinvent the wheel. It was, it's me doing fun stuff with people who I know that are experts and getting to do stuff that I've always wanted to do and didn't have a chance. Like, I just learned whitewater kayaking. We went up north and did that. We did a slacklining challenge with Alex Mason, who's like this, prodigy Red Bull slackliner. He scared the crap out of me. They tried to highline me, put me up on this high line. And then we did, I just trained and did the swim from Alcatraz.
Really?
Yeah. And we're showing off all parts of California.
Sure.
So, but I had to train for it, and
that's fun.
I got like swept away in the current, and it was like all I could do. So it was like awesome. Like, it was exactly the type of stuff I want to be doing. Now I'm learning to ride a horse because we're about to do a cattle drive, and they want me to be able to, like, barrel race and do all this stuff. So I'm like, just walked myself into this amazing job. So busy with that, and like on a daily basis, that's a lot of communication. Like, because some of, like, the next idea we're doing is was mine. We're going to go longboard racing in LaPorte, where the gold miners, like the downhill skiing racing, technically, arguably, was the idea of racing was the gold miners created it in the foothills.
Right. Like, the first chairlift was in Idaho, but it was for mining.
Okay.
Originally.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. They had built these lifts to bring the ore out of the mountains. And then they started using them to ski off of in the winter.
Huh.
So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so there's an area, and they raced these long wood skis. I mean, when I say long, I mean they're like 15 or 20 feet long. It's crazy.
Yeah,
They stand on them, and they just go straight, and they would bet. So we're gonna go do that and then ride timber bikes. Have you ridden a timber bike yet?
I've seen them. They look insane.
I know. So I'm like, I want to do that. Let's put it together.
Of course,
so
and get paid to do it.
Oh, it's awesome. So I'm rolling on that stuff right now, and so that's kind of my daily habit, I guess, is just like, I've got a kind of a slurry of other, people I work with, like Tipsy Elves, who makes throwback ski wear, and then my wife. Actually, what's taking up a lot of time right now is my wife and I just started, and my partner, we just started a. See, I told you it's a laundry list.
It's awesome.
We just started a roasted organic sunflower kernel, which is a snack food. It's called Iota. It's in 3 different flavors, 2 different sizes. One is a spouted pouch. So it's a food startup. We have sweet. Our sweet flavor is called Kettle, and it's like demerara sugar and sea salt, super yummy, low in sugar. The sunflower seed is like has more protein ounce for ounce than an egg. And then we've got our savory flavor is called umami. It's like apple cider vinegar and tamari, and so
you got your hands in everything.
Oh my god, we are going nuts. It's great. This is how I like it to be, and so I'm out there selling seeds, doing demos in grocery stores and stuff.
Wow.
And it's going great. We're just getting tons of reorders from all our little local grocers, and then we're starting in Whole Foods in like January for a test in the NorCal Whole Foods. So.
Was that your wife's brainchild?
Yeah, so it was a long, kind of drawn out process, but yeah, my wife and I were looking at. We had kind of a startup going that we were getting close to launching, and I've been kind of taunting her for a while to do something of my own. I've always wanted to do it. I've always been
she kind of act as your manager a bit?
She's been my manager since pretty much like 2 years after we started dating. So 2000.
So you're totally a team.
2003, totally, 100%. Like, oh my God, she saved me like that. That was just such a great.
And this was it before the Olympics?
I started dating her in 2000.
Okay, tell us that story.
Going
please.
into 2002. Yeah, so it's. I mean, I can go deep into the story. I mean, the quick and dirty version is that we went to high school together, but we didn't date. She just didn't run in the same circles. It was a small private high school. We weren't in the same classes because she was just, let's say, academically a little more advanced than me, and kind of ran in a different crew. Like I was like a jock, played tons of sports. She really didn't. So we just didn't cross over very much. Friendly because it was a small school, but I knew about her, and we had been third wheels on a date one time, and kissed, and so I was like, we had something going, but I was not in that mode, and neither was she, so we just kind of never really communicated. That was in high school.
Wow.
And then let's see, in 2000, we graduated in 93. I was like coming off of the 98 Olympics, and I had been on a tear, and
what kind of tear, Jonny?
Just like, I mean, I was making up for lost time, right? Like after 98, I was working. I was out there, between 98 and 2000, I was trying to make the most of the gold medal, right? Mm-hmm. And to me, that meant capitalizing on every aspect, right?
Where did that drive come from? Like, versus just resting on your laurels? Yeah,
well, believe it or not, I've always kind of liked the business side of skiing. Like, I remember from writing my first letters for sponsorship when I was like 15 or 16, to that time. So it's not like it wasn't a foreign thing for me to try to like maximize to make money and try to like get paid for what I do. And some of it was need based, and some of it was just like, what can I get? What can I do? But I remember after I won the Olympics, someone said something to me like, they were talking about another Olympic athlete, and they said, well, don't do what he did and blow your what you just did and on the business side or whatever. And I was kind of like, it's interesting. I had never really like thought about that, but in some ways I started to think to myself, okay, well, now this is like a new game, Now because in my mind, after I won the Olympics, like it was over.
Exactly.
I was like, I'm done, right? Like I'm going. I was like, I'm going back to. I'm done. I want to go back to school. I transferred to UCLA, and I was like, definitely not going back to another Olympics. You know, like burnt. I was like done. Yeah, because I just invested my whole life in that. You know,
right. And it did take everything.
It did. It did.
You are so one-dimensional when you're training for that. There's nothing else that's allowed to be on the planet.
No, I mean, you absolutely have to eliminate all distractions and anything else there and sub everything out, right? Mm-hmm. Like you cannot, I mean, at some point I was like not taking any phone calls or talking to anybody. It was just like, it's a weird solitary lifestyle,
tunnel,
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and relationships, you know, you're not having girlfriend. I mean, I remember like broke up with a girl 2 years before because I knew I was going into this cycle, going into the 98 Olympics, you know, like you're just going, you have to.
Yeah.
And you like you spent that much time doing stuff that, so I was, you know, making
it was
up
like
for
you were
lost
finally
time.
free.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you weren't depressed. I feel like a lot of athletes, it's like their life is literally over and they're not sure what to do and they go into mass depression. And it sounds like you were opposite.
Oh my God, no. I was definitely not depressed. I went and I finished off the season. I mean, I took advantage of all the right post-Olympic stuff, and then I finished off the season and went and I won the World Cup that year, and then I went down and I did some filming. I think that's when I might have done a Warren Miller segment or a TGR segment or something I always want to do. And then I went down and I lived in LA and surfed every day and transferred to UCLA thinking I was going to go. And indeed, I did go for a couple weeks and partied my ass off. And at some point, I was like, you know, I just was like, wow, I'm a real lush right now. Like, what am I doing? I had this realization. I was like in school and I was taking summer school classes so I could be ready to start in the fall. And I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like my career is just starting. You know, I'm like, this is like the best time. Like now I have like real contracts coming in. I've got another Olympics. And so I kind of, I always just like liked, it was something I hadn't finished yet, school. It's like I kept putting it off, and I had gone a little bit and I kept putting it off and I just was burnt. I mean, I just didn't want to go back and ski more moguls or, you know, just get back in that like lifestyle again. And so I just needed that time, I guess, to sort of, you know, let loose, man. And I did. And then I was like, Jesus, I've got a lot to now. I'm just beginning. And that's when I made this plan to basically like, and it was kind of a business plan. At that time, I wasn't really thinking about the Olympics because we're now only in like the spring of '98, mm-hmm. right? But now I'm like, I want to do all these things that I couldn't do when I was on the team. I want to do X Games. I'm into the free skiing, you know, the thing. I want to, you know, do more slope style and do more movies and all this stuff. You know, I want to be like a pro. Like I want to get in the mix. You know, like I was tired of being like the ski team guy, and I was definitely had a chip on my shoulder about being categorized as only a mogul skier. And that's like a chip you get as a freestyle skier because everyone makes fun of you growing, you know, when you go.
I remember. I should have been one, but everyone made fun of the freestyle skier, so I was like,
exactly.
I can't do that.
Exactly. So, you know, you get a little angst built up, and so I was kind of out there to prove some things, you know. And so that's when I started like
that's amazing. You have a gold medal and you still were like, I just grumpy about who you needed to prove wrong. That's awesome.
I was, yeah.
It shows just chippy. Where the Olympics really stand.
I was definitely chippy about it. I was like, I don't want to be known just as that. I want to be in the mix. So then I kind of developed a plan to compete in everything. I was like, I'm not going overseas. I'm not doing any World Cups, nothing that's not on TV. And so I just was like, I'll do the World Cups that are here. I'll do the pro events, which at the time was bumps and jumps. I'll do X Games. I'll do the US Open. And then I'll film for, you know, I think it was TGR or MSP at the time. So I'm going to do it all. Like I'm going to blank.
So how'd that go?
And I'm going to get a TV show. Like, and I created the Jonny Moseley Invitational. And I'm going to create my own event And that was pure, like, I want to prove that. I was purely like, I want to prove that myself, and I want the world to know like who the best skiers are. And so that's why I created the Jonny Moseley Invitational, which was skier cross and slopestyle, and you had to do both.
Nice.
And so I was determined to like show that, that the best skier should be able to be well-rounded in that way. Like, you can't just be an alpine racer and say you're like, or ski big lines in Alaska and have no aerial sense. And, like, there's got to be some determination, because it was so fragmented. And that ended up being a 2-year thing we did on NBC. And
wow.
I didn't win it the first year, but I won it the second year. And it was like, I invited all the people that I respected as potentially the best skiers in the world, from, McConkey to Treitler to all JP Auclair, JF Cousin, Vincent, everybody. And it was like Yoon. It was like 12. I think it was like we had 16 skiers or something like that.
Who won?
The first year, actually, in Steamboat, Evan Divbig won. I don't know if you know who he is, but he was like the only guy from the mogul team that I invited, because he was a 6th skier. I mean, he was like one of the first guys to do really clean 720s.
Where did he go?
In the bumps. He was an amazing skier. He came out of the East Coast,
Clearly.
Killington kid. He won a World Cup his first year out of the gate when he was like, first year on the World Cup, he won with a 720. And at that time, nobody was doing 720s in the bumps. And he had this like ripping 720 he could do with perfect form. Nobody was even close to that. And he ended up going to the 2002 Olympics, but he always had knee problems. The knee injuries did him in.
Yeah.
But he was an amazing skier and a great aerialist, and just a.
Do you find that,
so
that
he
like
won,
some of the best athletes just never? We don't know their names for one reason or another.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's like that in every sport, though. There's always like these highly talented, guys that for one reason or another, it doesn't work out for them. And, a lot of it's injury related.
But you have to play so many different, I guess, not games, but there's more to it than just the skiing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
no, that's true. And you can take, and if like, I remember like JF Cousin and those guys would make fun of me, because they'd sneer at me that I did it that I did it the easy way, like I won the Olympics, right? So it, like, all of a sudden it boosted me, and I got that. But if you have to build it from the ground up, like as a pro, like like you're doing, and where you don't have like this one.
There's no
like platform where you're going to reach 20 million people in one night or whatever, like the Olympics or something like that. Then you have to slowly, you have to build all these bridges.
No track. There's no existing.
There's no track. You have to play every card, and you're promoting, and you're self-promoting, you're making your career and building your brand. And it's a hard way to do it. And I respected that. And that's one of the reasons I kind of like,
you're like
ignored
bridging
the gold medal and tried to take that pro mentality. Because one of the things I think one of the kids like for example, myself and the kids who grow up on the ski team system, one of the things they're not good at, and I wasn't good at, is this idea that you're working with sponsors to build your brand, and how you do that. Ski team kids, when you're growing up in the system, and this goes for freestyle and all that, you just, in your mind, you think, if I win, my
job is to win.
My job is to win, and I'll get recognized for that, and then I'll get paid, and blah, 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 blah. Now, for the most part, that's kind of true, especially with alpine racers, right? They don't need to go out there, and it's like they're they're on salary almost. Like, they just do their job, and that's good enough. Mm-hmm. But, when you're a pro, like, and you're making your way in a non-Olympic sport like big mountain or filming, like, it's all that. The part of the game is working with companies, and how you expose yourself, and how you present yourself, and how are you adding value to what they're doing. Do you understand their business, and
talk about that for anyone that
really
might be listening that's like, how do you do this? Because we get these all the time, right?
Yeah.
How do you be a pro skier?
Yeah.
And I think that you just, If anyone, you know what that means. So what?
Well, I mean, if anyone, you know what that means. I mean, I'm saying
I don't know. I don't know that I'm.
Well, I mean, and like I'm not even a great example of it. I mean, the guys who really paved the way in that and built it from the ground up with no like hanging titles to start with, right? Just sort of like, I mean, you can go way back, but I'm talking about Plake and Schmidt, right? Like Schmidt particularly is like the perfect example of a guy who was the first guy to actually get paid to ski that wasn't a downhill or a racer or something or a freestyle or had some kind of like, bona fides, I guess is maybe the word. So, and then, I always look at McConkey too as one of those guys that just was, and Davenport, guys that are just sort of like really understand the business right, like when they were 16 years old. They understood. Kreitler was one of those guys who understand the business. Tanner, right away, and know that there's an athletic portion to it where you have these talents and but there's also like a market awareness. Where is it going? And then you got to understand what these companies are trying to accomplish, because ultimately you're selling stuff, and if you're not a successful seller, you're not influencing other people, then you're not a pro, and you're not going to be for long. So that's probably the thing that I think it's pretty common knowledge now, but that was something I learned from them a bit, and how much are you exposed, like you have to really work with it. You want to make these relationships are huge, and how and the sensitivities to what their product is doing and how you can help, and where do you go with that, and what's happening in the industry. And so, yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it. Is I wish sometimes I think what they need to do, and the ski team kids are starting to be hip to it a little bit and understand it, but man, if you're out there and you want to be a pro skier or pro in any of these sports, you got to sit down and understand, like, I mean, what a P&L looks like, I guess, like what it means to start a company. I mean, you have to have a lot of respect for that to start with. Like, it's really hard to start a company, to get a company like Smith. Just take a company like Smith. You just look at a company like that, and it's a great story. And it's a dentist who, like, I don't know, what did he do? I don't know how he came up with the double foam lens or whatever. He just got sick of fogging his lenses, but he turned it into this company, right? And then, but all the skiers are, they want to get sponsored by Smith but if you're like a founder of that company and you've been there for a long time, how hard it was to make your like first dollar, and be profitable and have employees and all this stuff. And so then when you get some like kid who comes in and is like, hey, give me stuff and pay me and all this stuff. And
I'm the best skier.
Exactly. I'm the best skier on the mountain. You're like, what the hell? What is he doing for me? Like, how is this going to transfer to my bottom line? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's a lot of what being a pro is about, I would say.
Thank you. I'm still just trying to learn here.
On and on.
No. Well, I hate to bring you back here, but I need to hear the rest of your love story.
Oh, the love story. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I love to tell it. Then, yeah. This is what my mother does. You ask me a question and I go like 40 pages back and start there, and then I never get to the point.
No, it's all been awesome.
But the reason I was talking about that was because, I guess to be blunt, I was looking for a relationship. I was looking to be like in a relationship, which was something I never was interested in until a couple of years of just being kind of like out there on the road, traveling a lot,
doing whatever you wanted,
meeting a lot of different girls and having no like connection to them or where they were from, and and I wasn't a guy who was disciplined enough to be single either,
What does that mean? Disciplined enough to be single?
Dating girls takes a lot of energy and work, Not work, but like you stay out a little later than you should, you drink a little more than you should, right?
So how is that discipline?
Well, some guys maybe will have the ability to be like, I got to go home right now. I don't care what this girl's doing. I'm got it. This isn't gonna happen, and I got it. I've got it. That wasn't me though. I'd be like, oh wait, hold on. So I'm just saying, like it takes away from your focus on your work.
Right. Okay.
If you're not, and so, and I was sort of, so I guess what I'm saying is laying the groundwork was in the back of my mind. Is that clear? No, you don't agree with that?
So I guess what
you have? That
I'm
it takes energy when you're in.
No, you're saying discipline in the opposite way. So you're saying discipline to work over dating.
Yeah, I'm saying like a single guy who really keeps it together and stays on their program and works and doesn't get distracted
by girls.
By the trying to meet girls or have a relationship or date, that type of thing it takes a lot of discipline.
Okay. Now I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, like if you're and some guys can do that. I'm saying I don't know if I was that a guy who could do
girls
that.
Are there to distract you for important reasons. Probably.
I don't think it's like that. It's the guys. It's not I'm not saying girls are a distraction, and I'm not saying that like it's the girls were like taking me out of the picture. It was me. Like I wanted a
relationship.
Me. I was like I want to meet girls and I want to have a relationship and all that stuff. So, but anyway, at some point I realized like, well, you know how it is. Like when you're on the road, I mean, when you're on the road, you're a guy, like you want to, you can't, you don't have like a steady relationship. So everywhere you go, you come to New York, well, okay, you go out and the next thing you know, you like go to the next bar when you probably should have gone home. And then you're sort of like trying to meet her and then maybe you date her the next day. And it's like, you could have been working or in the gym, like.
See, I never go out.
Yeah, you have discipline. I'm just saying, I knew myself and I could tell it was like kind of taking away from my thing. Anyway, long story short, I actually was home on like a rare break, and I think I had hurt some minor injury, and I was kind of home, just sort of like getting it together, and. My buddy had given me the heads up that Malia was around, like single, and she is around, and I hadn't really heard her name for a while, and so I happened to go to my other buddy's birthday party, which is like rare because I'm never around for my buddy's stuff, and it was like, bam! I saw her and I was like, oh yeah, done, and I just sold it. I was just like, went into sell mode. pulled out every move I had learned in my career.
Such as?
In my the one thing I think that I got, like one thing that I think impressed her was that after getting her, not impressed her but maybe like tricked her kidding is that I after sort of like going through the whole flirt and finally getting her number, I didn't even write it down. She just told it to me and I remembered it.
Wow.
Now what I did was I like remembered it and hung out, and then I ran in like the bathroom and wrote it down. But it made it look like I just like boom.
Look how smart I am.
So I think she thought I was smarter than I was, and that was attractive to her. That would be my guess.
There you go.
And then after that, it was just we been together ever since. I immediately knew too that I wanted her to help me out with everything, and she was working a corporate job at Gap and like climbing through the ranks there, and she was just, I could tell she was great and smart and the whole package, and I was right. I mean, it's been just an awesome, great, probably it's the best thing I've ever done for sure. And so, but yeah, back to the original question. She, after I went back to school after the 2002 Olympics, and so I kind of fell out of the ski world, and I wasn't really active. I mean, I was almost retired. I was still doing MTV stuff, and I had a current manager at the time, Cooper Shell, and so he was like, you just, I'm gonna go back to what I was doing, and it's just, and he was right. Like, it just wasn't a lot of stuff going on, and so he left, and Malia kind of filled in the void. And ever since then, she's been doing my deals and managing, and all the people I worked with loved her, and she's just been a great advisor. But now she's on the IOTA. I'm taking some of the stuff. I'm having to do a little bit more of my own stuff because we're all busy with all of it, but she's a little more time on IOTA right now. Which and we have one more partner named Joanna, who's came out of the food biz, and that's how we kind of got into it. Oh, there she is right there. Malia, I'm talking about you right now. Your ears burning? You're on the radio. With Lynsey's right here interviewing me for her podcast, but I was just telling the story of how we met.
It was so awesome.
My favorite.
Yeah. Yep. Is it urgent, or can I call you back?
It's zero urgent. I just missed you.
I miss you too. I love you. All right, bye.
Okay.
That was not planned.
That was so cute. Nice work, Jonny. Good job.
Yeah.
Wow, I had a really good question and then I forgot it. Well, I guess what do you feel like after having some time since the Olympics? Like, what are some of the biggest things that skiing taught you that you use in the real world on a daily basis? Or
yeah, it's a good question. The things that skiing taught me, I guess they manifest themselves now a lot when I'm hanging with my kids, because they're into sports and they're in, I'm trying to try to shed some of the knowledge that I acquired. I think the one thing overarching, and it's hard. It's a broad question, but losing in 2002 was tough. And
yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah,
that was next on the trajectory.
Yeah, yeah. All that stuff. The losses are really tough. They're all tough. When I first stepped up to the World Cup and started losing and didn't make it to '94, and I remember, you get down, and it's sort of, I guess it's cliche, but yeah, it's like everything is all about how you recover, And I even found my kid. We were out. We were playing some baseball the other day, and this has a point, and I'll get to your answer, the 0-2 answer in a second. But we were out playing some ball, doing some drills, and I'm like, I can't help myself, right? I coach my kids. I can't help it. I just constant. And I try to bounce between being nice, but then at some points I'm like, I hear my coaches from skiing, and at some point you have to be like a little firm, and you have to get stiff, and you kind of get up in the face of your athlete and be like, dude, what are you doing? Which I had unbelievable coaches that helped me out. So I remember saying I was coaching my younger one on, I was telling him, giving him a little grief on how he was throwing and telling me his elbow up, and he kind of threw his glove down and got mad, and I'm doing, which he's done before, and his tantrums they decreased. And I remember my older son used to do it a little bit too, and I heard my older son say, Tommy, he's not he's not mad at you. He's not criticizing you. He's just trying to help you.
Wow.
And it was cool because it was cool to hear my older son say that, because I had done that with him a lot. And sometimes you feel terrible, as a parent. You're like, I'm too hard on him. I'm going to burn him out. He's not going to like it. And so it's kind of cool to hear my son recognize that and point it out to my younger son, because that told me that my older son was starting to recognize that too. Point being that I think what you learn from skiing and from training and trying to get better at something is that you have to be critical with yourself, and you have to be able to accept criticism, and you can't take it personally, and you can't look back all the time and hang dog and think it's personal, and you get down on yourself. You just have to figure out what to do about it immediately. And I think it's one of the hardest things to do in life, and it's still hard for me. And my wife will give me grief for looking back and not just looking forward and doing stuff even to this day. So I think that's why it's really important that even if you don't go anywhere in skiing, or go become a pro or whatever, but you compete, or you're when I say compete, I mean in everything. Being a pro and trying to make the best film segment, or trying to be well known, or be the most the best skier, win the Powder Award for best skier of the year or whatever is what I mean. And that's competition too. In fact, it's nastier. Nobody realizes like how nasty the film world is. I mean, you think, oh, it's fun out there, I'm filming, but to compete, you're still competing against all the other guys with way higher consequences, right? Like your consequences are death. So what I'm saying is that focus, and how to be real with yourself and break it down, analyze it, turn it around, figure out how to fix it and get better is universal. And I think it's something that I learned from skiing.
And you learned from coaches?
Everything. I mean, I started with great coaches that were frank with you but gentle and sort of felt your waves and moved with you, but were sensitive but firm. And so I started with great coaches starting when I was really young with Raymond, and these guys are all still friends and mentors. And then Cooper Shell, I always he's the guy I really buckled down and trained with before the 98 Olympics, and would really credit him with my success. Is he was a guy, I mean, we came to like arguments on the hill. I mean, we would the type of thing where I'm doing it, no you're not, and like, okay, but I'm trying, but you're not doing it, so let's but he forced me to be real with myself and not.
But how do you do that
it.
once you don't have a coach anymore?
Well, that's hard. That's hard. I mean, that's really hard when you go from. I realized I thought I was like this disciplined Olympic athlete, but you realize when you stop having coaches and trainers and head coaches and people sort of organizing your schedule and career and managers, that's like you're laid bare. It's way hard.
You think that that's what you always wanted, and then it happens and you're like, well, where's the structure?
No structure. It's really hard. I'm still working through that. You know what I mean? Like self-discipline and keeping yourself on track is no joke. It's really hard. And in some ways, I feel like the pro environment where you're sort of out there making your own schedule and you're managing your travel budget. I've never really been on that program. Stuff like that is really important and makes you a better person too.
So what do you mean by the struggle, like of what happened with when it didn't work? Like what?
Oh, in 02?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just saying like that loss was, even though, it was, even though I look, I mean, any loss is painful, even though I have so much like love from the general public who every time I turn around, someone says, oh, you should have won. But still, to me, it's still not the win I was looking for. So I still,
tell us
have
the
to
story
kind of wrestle
of that
with
day.
I guess the prep, how we started with that question was I use it as an example of something I learned from skiing.
But for people that don't know the story of that day, just real quick.
So I can go deep with the story, but I can really go back. But essentially in 02, in my mogul run, I did a trick called the dinner roll. And it's essentially an off-axis 720 in the moguls. And
it hadn't been done before.
It hadn't been done. It's not significant now because everybody does it, but it had not been done before in World Cup moguls. I think Zox or something had a cork 7 had been thrown in moguls at some point, but because I was deep in that whole crew, right, with JF and JP and Mike and Shane, Zox, and all those guys, kind of in the beginning of this free ride movement. That's where I got the 360 mute grab, was from those guys. And so I was hanging with them, and when I went to do the X Games in 99, I was up in Whistler, and I was like, I had visualized this trick, and I really loved the rodeo in snowboarding and a lot of different snowboarding tricks. And
I love that you were influenced by all these other outside forces. You weren't influenced by your discipline. You were pulling in the snowboard stuff and the free ride stuff, and that's awesome.
No doubt. I mean, I got into the sport because my brothers were like way into skateboarding and punk music, and like that's how we got into freestyle, right? It was like we were in there from the beginning because it was not.
It was alternative.
Racing. It was alternative, and so it was like for me to not do what was on the cutting edge was like blasphemy.
Pushing the sport.
That was like why we got into it, right? It
Exactly.
was all about doing the next thing, and that was like
That hadn't been
ingrained
done.
in me,
Yeah.
right? And so, I mean, my oldest brother like burnt his ribbons because at the end of a race, at the end of a mogul contest, because he was like protesting that they had added time to the freestyle event, and people had skied around the moguls and taken a faster route. So this is like in me, right?
Right.
There's nothing cool. You're not a freestyle or a free skier if you're not like pushing the envelope.
There's
like,
no reason to do it if you're not pushing it.
no, you're never gonna go. You're never gonna be considered one of the best. It's just that's just the way it is. And so, and that's the way it is in surfing. That's the way it is in all these sports. You know, that's just the way it is. You can't go out there and do what someone else did a little bit better all the time and think you're gonna be known as like, you know, one of the best guys ever. It's just that's not the way it works. So for me, like when I saw that happening, I was like, absolutely, that's where I want to be. I mean, I absolutely, like that's what I want to do. So I just thought.
And
it was
now
the
you can
coolest
represent that on the world stage.
thing. Exactly. So that was my opportunity, right? So I had gone. I had tried it off the wind lip first, and JF had been doing kind of he was doing kind of a rodeo to 540. So I had visualized more of a flat spin takeoff, and do it to 720. So I did it off the wind lip in Whistler in the summer, and got smoked, dislocated my shoulder, and was like out for a while. So then I took it, once I got a little bit better, I took it to the water ramp in Whistler, and I was able to manage it. I was able to figure it out. And then I did it on snow for the first time up there. And then I took it to the X Games in '99 and had that battle with JF Couson and ended up second. Ended up doing the first like switch 7 and landing backwards. And unfortunately, I didn't have freaking twin tips. Otherwise, I would have tried to go to 9. But so I ended up just doing a big flat spin set, or what I call the dinner roll, and ended up second. But anyway, I had the idea at that point. I was like, damn. A little bit later, I was like, I want to go back to the Olympics, but what am I going to do? Like, because at that point, I wasn't even thinking. In '99, I was like, I don't even think I'd go to the Olympics, whatever. But in 2000, I was like, I got to go to the Olympics, dude. This is like,
It's the Olympics.
I didn't come this far to not do another Olympics, and I can. So, but I was totally out of mogul shape, right? I was out hanging with all the free skiers and disciplined guys, but definitely not in mogul shape. Like the quickness just isn't there, right? So I started toying with the idea of being able to do this dinner roll in the moguls, and long story short, I couldn't really. I knew there was actual like technical problems with it. Like I had to go to the FIS and show it, and I knew I couldn't do an invert. And I knew
right.
they
So
would
explain
change the
that.
rule.
Explain that rule.
So there's no inverted tricks allowed in the moguls because it was never an issue back in the day, because like there were no jumps big enough to do a backflip in the moguls in the 80s, right? In the late 70s, no people were barely doing twister spreads, so it wasn't an issue. B, in the 80s, 70s, late 70s, everyone got hurt. Freestyle got banned from all these resorts because people were getting hurt. So
Trying to do backflips in resorts,
exactly.
and somebody broke his neck. Resort got sued, and so they illegalized.
That's right.
all inverts.
That's
so
right.
that's where it came from.
He legalized it. Exactly. So that rule somehow creeped into moguls, which actually is kind of interesting. I'm not sure that the genesis of that, how they kind of foresaw that they wouldn't allow inverts in the moguls, but it did.
And then Jonny Moseley.
And so we
was like, screw that.
I'm like, well, I just genuinely, I had two prongs. I genuinely thought it was stupid.
It was.
And
It was holding the sport back.
Absolutely.
On the Olympic stage is a little different than the guy who comes out for the weekend to his local resort and gets hurt.
That was always my thought.
Exactly.
Don't even legalize it at the youth level.
No.
But we're
no.
pros.
You're
Let us
an
do
Olympian.
whatever we want to do.
How-
If we can do it, we should be able to do it.
On the Olympic stage is where it belongs.
Exactly. I mean, that's just
We all
to
love
me
you
it
for
was
it.
to me it was ridiculous that they
So
had.
what happened?
So yeah, technically I knew I wasn't going to be able to get the rule changed in that amount of time. So we built this little jump, Cooper and I, up in Squaw. I remember it was like barely any snow. There was like a patch of snow up there because the meetings were like in April or something, and this was the week before they were going. They're like, if you want to do it, we got to submit it. It's like, oh crap! So we went up there and built a little jump, and I did the trick, and we videoed it from 4 different angles, and I had enough control of the trick that I could vary it to be more inverted or less inverted, and I really liked it more flat. That was the way that's what differentiated it from
It had more
what
style.
JF Busan was doing, and also from what Shane Sox and Mike D were doing, which is more like that, a cork 7. And so I was able to do it pretty flat. And so we videoed it, and I showed that my feet were actually level with my head, and it actually wasn't an inverted trick.
Love
And
it.
so they took it to the FIS meetings and showed it around and had a vote, and they approved it by 1 vote. And I was elated. I was like, yes, I'm going to be able to do it. Now, the truth is I had never been able to do it in the moguls at that point. I had
Only
never actually done it. So we went down to Chile. And then there's a whole parallel story going on here because I'm barely on the team at this point, right? Like I had to come back, and I got no allowance. They gave me 2 events. And anyway, but I'm back on the team. We'll just skip that. I'm back on the team at this point. I'm down in Chile training. And I try to do it in the moguls, but it's just like not working at all. So
Because you don't have enough of a jump?
No, I got plenty of air. I'm getting the trick, but it's just a really tight window. Like, you're skiing in, you don't have any. I was used to being able to carve up the ramp and, like kind of
that's
use
a
all the
huge part of
forces.
it.
But I couldn't do that. So I had to sort of just whip it, right? And it was fine. But when I would land, I'd have like so much inertia still that it would like throw me onto my right leg, and I'd still be rotating a little bit, and I couldn't slow it down. Because when you're in the flat part, you're like this big board spinning, right?
Yeah.
So you create this massive amount of torque.
With your skis too.
Yeah, because you're flat, and it's like this big, heavy thing with skis and boots.
Yeah.
So when the boots and the feet come down, it wants to freaking spin like a top. When it comes down, it wants to spin like a top. So on a big jump, I could slow that down, right? Like if you're traveling 70 feet, you can kind of set it slow, and you have a lot of time to sort of like let it come down, and you can actually ski out of it at an angle too. But in the bumps, I had to land in the rut line, and I would load up my downhill ski so hard that it would be like, boom, and I'd just hit the first rut, and I'd just be like ragdolling to the point where I'd knock myself out.
Oh.
And I couldn't dial it in. So I ended up going into the Olympic season without the trick dialed in, but I had it approved. I basically didn't tell anyone that I wasn't going to do it. I still was claiming I was going to do it. I went out. I had to get a World Cup win to qualify, which I eventually did, like at the last minute with normal tricks. Then I went and immediately did one in a World Cup so I could lay it down on the books, because that was part of the rules. You had to actually do it in a World Cup before the Olympics. It was ugly, but I managed to get it to my feet. Then we went to Steamboat. Cooper, my coach, lined up a private course basically for me. And we trained it, and I basically was like altered it a little bit into more of a D spin, a little bit more. I took some of the flat spin out of it and kind of straightened it out a little bit. I had to make it more like a pop, and then I couldn't do the big flat part of it, and turned it into a little bit more of a cork 7, I guess. And I took it to the Olympics, and I was just so pumped, man. I'm like, this thing is just gonna kill, And I knew there was a chance. I in my mind, I was like, this is crazy. Like, nobody can do this. Nobody's doing it. Like, if I put this down, it's like, I was selfish too. I was like, I'm gonna be a hero, and I'm gonna win. This is like the best situation possible. I'm gonna
revolutionize
encore my 98 performance. So anyway, I laid down this run, and I ended up 4th. And I can break it down a million ways. I mean, the fact is I was slow, and that my time was a lot slower than the guys who won. But
And that's a much bigger factor in
it's
moguls.
25%. It's been reduced now to 20, but it's 25%. And the reason I had to, what sucks is the reason I had to go slower was because I couldn't hit, like the guys who were doing quad twisters off the bottom, they were just like Jonny and Travis and Richard Gay. Those guys just went straight at the mogul. Like they didn't even hit the tranny, just boom, 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 boom. In fact, Jonny like absorbed the takeoff.
Yeah.
He didn't even pop.
Yeah.
Just absorbed it, like, and then stood up and did a quad twister. So his trajectory was far, but flat, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he picked up tons of time there. I had to like match the transition and like pop.
Right.
Like,
And yours was way more of a crowd
sick
pleaser.
takeoff, right? Yeah. So
For style.
yeah, to even do the trick, I mean, you just, it's not a trick you can like just miss the takeoff.
You
and
don't
still
want
do it.
to.
You can't absorb the takeoff and still do it. No.
No.
So anyway, that hurt me, and I really needed a grade. I needed two things. I needed the judges to like fall out of their chairs and give me more points than just
Right.
be like, ignore the box scores and just be like, dude, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Or I needed, what really happened in hindsight was when they approved my trick in the International Ski Federation back in April or before the Olympics, they gave it the same degree of difficulty as the quad twister. And that's what killed me. But I didn't even
attention to
understand the
that.
system. I didn't have a whole lot of grounds to argue it. But after the Olympics, they changed that, and they made the degree of difficulty worth more, and allowed inverts and all that stuff. So that's kind of that's what I
Hang on to.
that's what I feel good about, right? When I think.
No,
about
we all
losing.
know. Yeah. Yeah, you brought a lot more respect to your sport because of that.
Yeah, I was trying to be cool. I was trying to bring the free skiing element into it, and bring it into, just show that we were freestylers were part of the movement too. And I was feeling like I needed to represent what we could do.
But you felt like it was a loss at that time.
Well, I mean, I always think back on and that's where this element comes in. Good follow-up question, because that kind of refocuses why I even brought this up in the first place, is that when I talk to like my kids and I see people, I just say like, leave it all on the table, because one of the things that I do look back on, and I think I could have done better going to the 2002 Olympics, is I was distracted, right? I had lots of business coming my way, and I wanted to take advantage of and as much as I was trying to train, every little deal you do, and every like, you do a deal that requires you to do a photo shoot. We got to fly out for that.
Get on an airplane.
That's a day that you're not training, and you know how it is. You never quite recover from that. So you do a handful of those, and
It's almost like the more successful you get, the less you actually ski.
absolutely, and that's a problem. And you really have to be disciplined to like, buckle down and ignore that stuff, which is really hard, because you feel like you've worked for that and you want to capitalize on it.
And that's when you maybe are finally getting some money,
exactly
and getting paid
Yeah,
for it, and you have to show up and be in person.
To be frank, you want to make that money. You're like, I want to make that money.
Well, most people have to.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I mean, yeah, it's not really a choice.
That's a tough one, but you can't have it. Unfortunately, you can't have it both ways, and that's the one thing.
You think you can. You think
you
you can.
think
still
you
train.
can. You think you can handle it. You think you can handle it, but then even psychologically, when you look back and you think to yourself, but I could have done it this way. I mean, there's always a look back. There's always thing, but you want to try to eliminate as much of those variables as you can.
Did you have to go through any therapy or anything to get? I mean, it's heavier than. I think everyone knows that transition is gnarly. Like, how did you get through all that?
Yeah, my wife.
Wow.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, probably. She's a pretty good therapist. So, yeah. I mean, yeah. No, it is the post Olympic, or the post career transition, I guess. And I think it goes for anything, Olympics or just being a pro or whatever, kind of accepting that you're sort of like not at the level you were at, and you're not going to be doing that, and you got to figure out something else to do, is rough. It's not a great feeling. And there's that like one point where you're kind of like, now I'm so far out that it's great. Like, I don't feel that sort of like need to prove myself or anything on the hill, but there's that kind of funny period where you're still like, you could be doing it a little bit and you sort of still have the skill,
Or you see
but
what they're doing and you're like, dude, I got that.
yeah, you're just kind of fading a little bit, and so that's a rough point, and you're not quite sure what you're gonna do. And
How long was that?
yeah, it's pretty long. I think it's kind of like I'd say that was like that was probably like 10-year process probably of like,
Dang.
kind of transitioning out and to a point where you're sort of not a little bit uneasy with it mentally, where it's like doesn't give you
You're just wondering
anxiety.
who you are, probably, because
Yeah.
it's such a big part of your identity and how people know you.
Absolutely.
And like you said, your wife said, stop looking back, look forward.
Exactly. Yeah. Trying
Wow.
not to like look back at what
Well, if
past and all
anyone
that.
has done an incredible job, it's you. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, you should have. Last night, I just watched Jonny just crush it with making people feel really good, and I don't know, you just seem like you're the ultimate.
Oh my god, that's the
example.
worst.
No, that's part of. I think the best part of our sport is helping other people feel like they belong here too, and have a place in the mountains. And you do that.
That's
cool.
a good way to put it. I like that. That's true. I think.
We're never.
I
The
think
people that
I
are
do-
too
I
cool
believe-
for
yeah.
everyone. I'm not down. The mountains are for everyone. They treat everyone the same, and I feel like that's how you treat people. It's cool.
Yeah, I like that. No, I think you're right. Because I often wake up and I'm like, oh god, what the hell? Why did I stay and talk to those people? So like stay up that late and keep talking to every single person. And what did I say? And now my voice is raw. But I do think it is important. Like each person you interact with is an important interaction. And in some ways, the sort of more notoriety you gain or you build, right? Which is like something you work to get, right? Like you work to get this recognition, and then each touch you have with each person becomes even more important because it's a hypersensitive interaction. If you come across like a dick, that's going to reverberate, and it's going to kind of like wipe out everything you just did, right? All that stuff all the work you've done to like get to that point. So, and I think it's important and it's not like I'm doing it purely. I enjoy it. Like, I'm
You're a people person.
I'm a ham. I like to talk to people and figure it out. But no, I think you're right. I think each interaction is important in an environment like that where it's all skiers and they've come there because they buy the Mountain Collective and they like to ski and they make a trip. That's great because then you're in an environment where everybody's kind of stoked and so I think in that environment, yeah, absolutely. Like you're sort of part of the public domain at that point, right? Like you're part of this. They have a piece of your career, and so you got to share it.
Totally. Well, you do a good job of that.
You too. Yeah. No, it's it's part of it.
Any other advice you'd give to up and coming? I guess anyone who wants to make a life in the mountains.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we covered it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think we
that was
did.
that was pretty good. I mean, I think those to sum it up, those two things are important. Like, it's a very personal business. It's a small business, so like the relationships are really important that you develop, and and they're not. It's not always like you can't fix them either. I mean, you're going to make mistakes in every aspect, and they're not. The nice thing about this industry we're in is that there's a lot of leeway. Most of these people watch us grow up and have seen us since we were kids coming through the system, and so they kind of know what they're getting. And I had like Todd Burnett was telling two people were telling stories about me last night from when in my youth,
Wow.
in my heyday, that were like, not for public consumption, like me definitely being like 22-year-old
Sure.
punk rascal party or whatever,
Sure.
So, but now these guys I would consider like some of my, and they were dealing with it on the marketing end, right? They were like trying to get
The
me to
PR.
somewhere, doing the PR around it,
Clean
right?
up.
Totally. And and so it's funny to see it come full circle where you're kind of like hearing that now I consider these guys like really close, and I have a working relationship with them and like
They're
them,
your
and
mentors.
they're great, but they've seen me through, watched me kind of grow up, I guess. So
That's
cool. You're going to be with, that's what I'm saying, is you're going to be with these people for a long time. So take a little bit of care with the people you interact
What about
with.
being a dad? I mean,
Oh, man.
what do you even do with it? One of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast was to get away from the screens and back to real conversation and real connection.
Yeah.
So how is it raising a kid in this day and age with fighting against screen time?
Oh,
Like, what is your take on all
Jeez,
that?
you really went right to the heart of the matter, screen time. I mean, it all comes down to screen time. God, I mean, it's great. I mean, I'll lament on so many things. It's tough. I mean, being a dad is really tough. Just in the fact that you want to win, like you want to be the best dad ever and win that competition. Not to the kids. Like, forget about them. You just want to have made all the right moves, right? You want to like make all the right moves, but there's not a whole lot. It's not like you have any experience,
Right.
and you don't get a second shot.
Right.
So you kind of
There's no
have
coaches for that.
Exactly.
Another reason for this podcast, like, what are the...
Exactly. There's no coaches for that. Exactly.
So what coaching would you say that
my
you've
God.
learned that...
Yeah, well, you just kind of have to figure it out as you go along and try things and so you try things, and if they don't work, you change them and ask other people and try to get help and figure out what works and what doesn't, and
So
yeah,
what
like how
works?
much screen time they should have versus what are they watching, and how much sports should they have versus how much should they study, and what kind of pressure and how much pressure do they need, how much do they respond to, should be no pressure, or like and then how much do you let them take risks and hurt themselves, and and protect them versus letting them. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to think about. So, and I have no advice on that. I mean, I'm just we're just trying to do the best we can at this point.
Come on.
Oh my
What
God,
works? Like,
seriously.
what have you figured out for... I don't know. Do you want your kids to be skiers, like at the level that you were?
Do we have time for that? 109. No. I mean, frankly, I don't. I just think there's too much. It's too. I know a little bit too much. It's the risk scares me. I don't. It doesn't feel like there's deep enough where if you didn't win a gold medal or like there's very little room at the top there, so it's not a very like deep pool of people who haven't had to reset and do something completely different to be like a pro or whatever, or and even in the so, but I mean, I'm hypocritical, right? So why wouldn't I think that my kid could do the same thing now? And that's just because it's a small industry and it's not necessarily like hugely popular in the US. Now, honestly, like if my kid wants to get into it, I'm going to support him, and he is into it, and he's now switching from racing to freestyle, which is like great. So I'm supporting it. It's something he's choosing, and so I'll be like my parents, I'm supporting it, and I'm following them around, and but it's not like my hope and desire that he'll do the exact same thing. But on the other hand, I'm conflicted, right? Because on the other hand, I do see the value in pursuing a passion and like just alone, even if he goes nowhere with it, just to be
Right.
do the best you can and get to a certain level and learn the same things, like how to be critical with yourself, how to analyze what you're doing, how to get better. Like those are life skills, and if he acquires them through skiing, that's awesome. I'll take it. I have a runny nose. The hell.
He's crying, guys. I got him to cry.
I'm crying. Good dude.
Yes.
Oh my
You
God.
can't even take it. Well-
I actually did cry last night a little bit.
From what?
I think I was telling a story. I was telling a story about my wife, actually, which is crazy. I mean, it was like getting all soft. I'm actually really proud of my wife right now, because she's like, I'm watching her do this. We're in this business together, but she's like the smartest girl in the room, so everything's kind of like falling to her. And so I'm like watching her in these interactions we have in these meetings and stuff, and I'm just like, holy shit, she's really sharp. So I'm like, wow, this is awesome. Kind of like I'm watching her. I'm sort of like seeing her
Watching
potential.
her shine.
Watching her potential. Yeah, it's cool. It's fun.
Is that kind of cool?
It is cool.
At one point, you were getting all the attention, and now she can be more of the
It
star.
is cool. It's great. Yeah, I love it. That's a fun thing to do with everything, right? With kids, with your friends, when you see someone sort of like reach, like reaching their potential in anything, sort of like, are using what they got to the best of their abilities.
Sharing their
it's
gifts.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool. So yeah, that's what it was.
That's awesome. What would you look for in a woman for advice for any ladies listening? Like, what do you guys see as?
Yeah, I mean, I make this out like it's this like fairy tale relationship. I mean, it was not been like easy or smooth or at all. I mean, we've had our, it's a lot of ups and downs. We've been married for 11 and we were together for 5 before that. So it's like, you just, it's not.
No,
I
it's
wouldn't
not a
even
fairy
call us
tale.
perfectly compatible. I mean, it's, you learn a lot about yourself. You gotta come both ways. And I mean, I have no advice for that, but I would say if you're in a relationship, it takes a lot of patience, I guess, on both sides. And work. I mean, you got to figure it out. It's like just the same thing as skiing. It's like you figure out the problems, and you're critical, but you can't take it personally, and then you've got to sort of either fix it on your end or help them fix it on their end, or both. And
so what makes you come back to it instead of giving up?
I think I can say, like, at this stage now where we're at, and it's like it's worth it. And the one thing I think you kind of have to, I guess that'd be something I would say. You kind of have to have faith. I mean, look, there's so many factors here. Like, there can be so many things that aren't tolerable, and I'm not suggesting that you stay together through whatever forever, but yeah, I mean, you get to a certain level of understanding and serenity, I guess, that is great, and then you can really start. It's a really mutually beneficial thing, and you have a lot of fun, and it's like, especially with kids and stuff, and it's just, you see the benefits. You can be really efficient. You can pursue your hobbies or your ideas, I guess, and I just like having someone to work with all the time and advise stuff, because the world's kind of gnarly out there, so it's nice to have a partner.
Yeah, partner. Like you against the world as a team.
Exactly. It's good to have a team. Exactly. That's what I would say. Is look for a teammate. Look for a teammate. That's what I would say. Like, don't think about if you're looking for a relationship, think it's a teammate. That's what you're looking at. It's like a roommate, really. Like, for a long-term roommate, like, can you hang with them, and can you work things out together?
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jonny.
All right. Thank you. That was awesome. I'd like to turn the tables on you and interview you, but that's a different time.
Yeah,
All
anytime.
Right. Okay.
This was fun.
Thanks,
Have a good
Lynsey.
trip home.
I want to say,
Stop crying. It's okay.
I
Everything's
know.
gonna be okay.
Oh my God. I'm turning into film air.
Aw. That Jonny Moseley. What a sweetheart. We salute you and anyone who can relate to you. Thanks for showing up. Thank you, friends, for listening. If you enjoyed the conversation, give us a review on iTunes. Spread the word, and be sure to subscribe. Also, we have 4 spots we just added to our March 28th week-long annual pilgrimage to Unicorn School, where we go get schooled by the mountains, in this case of Alaska. Hit me up on social for details, questions about the trip, and or your thoughts on the podcast. Who do you want to hear from? We've also set up a Patreon account where you can become a sustaining patron of the show and help us continue to share these conversations. You can also support by purchasing a limited edition pandacorn hat, a fuzzy hood to cover up your helmet, or koala corn goggle covers, all made by yours truly to keep you warm, keep you cute, and keep you representing this very special community in the wild where you are. If you'd like to become a Patreon, go to patreon.com/showingup or make one of those purchases on the Unicorn Picnic art website. It truly supports the show, and we aim to build this with this community. Your input truly does matter. It's for all of us. Thank you for joining. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for showing up in any way that's authentic to you. Until next time, friends, see you in the mountains.